rating, of curation and quality assessment. So yeah, I hope we have fun today. We're going to do some practical sessions to just like check out how these things work. So the topics we're going to cover today, OER and public domain materials, why do they matter, effectively curating OER, challenges in curating and sharing OER, where to find OER and public domain materials, and then tools for remixing and sharing these materials. So we will be focusing majorly on the last four subjects because I believe in the past few weeks you would have covered a lot more. You would have covered the first two topics more. I'm sure the first two speakers have already covered what OER and public domain materials and why they matter and the importance of them. But I'll just do a short summary over them, just to like bring it into the theme of today's own. So, what are OER and public domain materials? So, OER, which are open educational resources, are freely accessible and open licensed educational content that can be reused, remixed, revised, and distributed. Public domain, on the other hand, refers to artworks, books, just different kind of media to which no intellectual property laws applies. It means they're no longer covered by any copyright laws and they're available to be used by everybody and anyone. In a nutshell, so that is what each of this is. Why do they matter? So the first thing is that they bridge resource gaps in underfunded educational systems. We all know that the educational system is not in Nigeria, and I think even in Africa as a whole, the government doesn't allocate much of their budgets for education. You get to secondary schools, you get to like federal government secondary schools, state government secondary schools, and you see that they barely have any resources. They might be using textbooks from like 50 years ago because they can't afford replacements and all of that. So OER and public domain resources help to bridge that gap because they're a way for teachers, students to get free resources without needing to spend free resources already since there's no need to spend money, but they just bridge that gap. They don't have to depend on just funding and revenue coming in from maybe government or external sources. They can also get other resources through this means for free. They also promote equity and digital inclusion, especially in remote or undeserved communities. I think this also sort of ties to the first topic. You know, you have communities where maybe they have one school in the entire village. Like you might have like a whole village, you have just one school, and then the next school you have to take like 2 hours, a 2 hour car ride to get to the next school. So in places like that, OER and public domain resources are a way for them to just be included because you can use different tools, like some that support offline learning, and take it to them and teach them as well without having to spend so much money. It also supports localization. Basically, this just still covers the topic. What this means is that it's a way for you to get resources in the local languages of people so you can teach them. Like it's also, I think it also moves falls under this topic of digital inclusion because it means that even if there are students, there are people, there are teachers who don't speak English, you can get OER or public domain resources in the languages they speak and take it to them and include it to them basically. So the next slide is um, what are the tips for effectively? Sorry, do you have a question? I am not on the. Okay, no question. So, what are the tips for effectively curating OER? You know, you can't just go and then just search randomly. Like, what are the things that will help you? These are just like a few things to just like guide you. So the first thing is to define your purpose and your audience. Who are you creating for and what are their needs? And also what is your goal? This means like before you go out and say, oh, I want to search for something, you have to first sit down and think of, okay, why am I searching for this thing? Is the purpose for education? Is it for personal use? Am I trying to who is my audience to? Because at the same time, even if your purpose is education, who are you trying to educate? Are you trying to educate secondary school level students, university level students? Are you just trying to educate people as a whole? Like maybe you're trying to create media, something to put on like Facebook, Twitter, and educate the general public, or are you focused more on students? What is the goal of your search. That's the first thing to define because it helps you and guides you properly on which tool to use, because which tool to use, where to search, what you're searching for. Like, because are you searching for textbooks? Are you searching for videos? Are you searching for images? You have to define that before you start searching. The next thing is to search strategically. Use trusted repositories and apply filters where available. This just says don't just go randomly and type into Google and say, oh, I'm looking for OER resources. You might not get anything. You might get some things, but you might not even get the kind of things you need, even though they're available because you're not checking the right places. So you need to use trusted repositories. I'm going to show us examples of some trusted repositories in another slide. And then just know how to apply filters. Like you don't necessarily, if you just say, oh, I'm looking for textbooks, for example, you might get like a million results, and being able to go through all of them will take you so much time before you can find what you need. So know how to apply filters. Like for example, if my goal is, oh, I want to teach students in a school where the only thing they speak is Yoruba. I want to teach them about Nigeria's history. So when I go to whichever repository, whether it's Commons or Internet Archive, wherever, I don't just type in, oh, secondary school textbooks. I search, okay, books covering this topic, apply the filter of the language and just different filters, just like to make sure you get you don't get too broad results. You get results that are more suited to what you need. That way you have less things to go through. You don't have to start searching through 1,000 results to figure out which one of them applies to you. The next thing is to evaluate carefully, and you can use the crap test to do this. What is the crap test? So this is it. I'll go back for the last one. This is the crap test. It's an acronym that basically means currency, basically evaluate for currency, evaluate for relevance, evaluate for authority, accuracy, purpose, and licensing. So the first one, currency, is the content up to date? You have to make sure that what you're searching for is not outdated. As much as a lot of, I know that sometimes in public domain, when it comes to public domain material, some of them might be, oh, okay, you want something that the license has expired. But at the same time, you also have to make sure it is up to date. You don't want to search for example, if you were trying to do research on a certain topic, I'm trying to think of maybe you were doing, I'm trying to think of an example. Um, okay, nothing is coming to my head right now. But okay, think of, okay, maybe if you were searching for, okay, let's say you were searching for,
Effectiveness of focus.
sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear that. Okay, never mind. So, basically, just make sure the content is up to date. You don't want something outdated. For example, you might be searching for a topic, and then because you're using an outdated resource, the topic has already been disproven, or there have been like newer advancements. For example, in medicine, where maybe 20, 30 years ago, they thought that, I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, let me use an example of something I learned recently. So I used to think ginseng, it's like this root was 100% safe for everybody to use. But recently I learned that it also has side effects if you use it too much. So you have to like regulate quantity. So if I was doing like maybe research into like the medicinal qualities of different roots, and then I didn't use something that was up to date, I might have said, oh, this thing is 100% safe. You can use it. And then meanwhile, it has been disproven. Just like the thing with Zobo and pregnant women. I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, nobody knew it could cause miscarriages. But now we know that if the Zobo, the hibiscus tea, can cause miscarriages in some pregnant women, so it's better to avoid it in pregnancy. Just things like that is why you have to make sure that whatever you're using is up to date. The next thing is relevance. Is it appropriate for your context and learners? So this is why I said the first step is to decide what you're trying, what is your goal, and who are you trying to educate. Because whenever you search for any resources, for example, if you are trying to teach teenagers, you don't want to go and look for a textbook that has like crazily where all the words are like big words. You're using words that you have to stop every 2 minutes to go back and search the dictionary for the meaning of this word. You want to make sure it is appropriate for your learners and your context. The next one is authority. Who created the work? Are they credible and locally relevant? So the locally relevant is not always mandatory, but it's a good idea depending on your kind of audience. You want to make sure that whoever created the resource is credible. Like, for example, I study sociology in school. I'm a software engineer right now, and I'm also an open knowledge advocate. If I write a book on medicine, I'm not credible because I have no qualifications for that. So if I write a book on medicine, you wouldn't want to use that to teach your students because I'm not credible. I have no medical degrees. So that's the thing. You have to make sure that it is credible. And then the locally relevant also applies here because if, for example, you are looking for resources on the history of a particular place, it would always be better to find somebody who is associated with the place. You don't want, for example, somebody who has lived their entire life in in the United States who has never been to Africa, and then they write a book about Africa. They are not the most credible source. They're not locally relevant. They probably don't know as much. So just use discretion, but within that guideline. Then the next thing is accuracy. For whatever resource you're using, whatever information is out there, always confirm that the information is correct and has been fact checked. Check their sources. Don't just take a book that the person wrote and doesn't have a single source that they're just saying, oh, it is just my personal reasoning. That is it. And then the next one is purpose and licensing. You have to make sure that the material actually has an open license that is okay for you to reuse or remix. If the licensing is not clear, it's better to just leave it alone and find something else because you don't want a situation in which you use something and then later come to find gets in some trouble because it turns out that the license is not open for the license that it is under does not leave it open for reuse. So you always just want to confirm that you want to confirm what license it actually is under. If there's no license, just leave it and find something with a clear license that says, oh, okay, you can reuse this thing or you can remix this thing. So that is basically the crap test. You can use this like whenever you want to search for a resource, you can just use this to make sure that you're getting the best quality you can find. I'm going to go back for the last one. The last one is also to adapt for local relevance. You want to translate or summarize in local languages and also add local examples and case studies. So, if your audience does not speak English, for example, and the resource you find is in English, you might want to translate it or summarize it in something in a way they will understand. But even if they do speak English, it's always better to add, like, if there are examples and case studies, it's always better to adapt it to something they will relate with. You know, when you're trying to teach someone, you want to connect with your audience. And the best way to connect is look for examples and case studies that they will relate with. Replace it with like things that happen in, for example, if you're in Nigeria, replace it with things that happen in the Nigerian context that they will understand more and it will help them pick it up easier. Because if you're using an example and they can't relate with that example, it will make it harder for them to understand. So you just have that's like the purpose of adapting it. So common challenges and searching for OER resources and how to overcome them. I don't have a lot here, but this is just like to go over. The first one is low quality or outdated content. I think I covered the other one in licensing. Just make sure that you are reviewing it and confirming that it is up to date and it is good quality. Don't just find it and use it as it is. The next thing is unclear licensing, which you can overcome by checking the licenses before reuse. If the license is not clear, find another resource. That's always the best alternative. If you're not sure about what license, if like you see a resource and you're not sure about the licensing is not clear, it's just best to leave it be and find something else. Accessibility materials accessibility barriers. Examples of this is probably, for example, you have a resource that is just visual, and then you have some people who cannot read or who can't see. So just include diverse and more inclusive materials for in the case of if you have something that is just visual and you have people who cannot see, you might want to include like audio transcriptions or you could add subtitles so that people, some people have when people are listening to stuff, some people have problems focusing on stuff when you're reading it. So you might also want to include subtitles, for example. Just depending on your audience, you might want to include more diverse and accessible ways for people to interact with it. And the next thing is bad one, unavailable internet access in rural areas. I use this because, even in Nigeria, even in the non-rural areas, we have time when the internet is not, we have times when the internet is not stable. Like, for example, so I work in VI, and for some reason, in the particular area where I work, once you enter that particular area, the network is horrible. Like, the network is insanely bad, and that is VI. There's supposed to be, an urban center. This is a place where there are a lot of like banks, businesses. It's supposed to be an urban center, but there's this particular area that the moment you go in there, the network disappears. You could be on a call coming in, the internet will be clear, and then you get to that place and then just goes off. So that's why I did an example like this. So the good thing, what you can do about this is just use offline tools. For example, Colibri. We'll go over what Colibri is later. Just other offline tools, like for example, if you have like text documents, you could use Google Docs, which is also partly available online. Just make sure that whatever you're using can be adapted to offline use. You don't want to pick a tool that can only work online, because that'll become a problem for you if you're going somewhere where there's not a lot of internet connectivity. So the next slide is where to find OER and public domain resources. So for each of this, I'm just going to take you. This is, I think, where we're going to spend a lot of time, because we will go to each of this each of these sites and check. Sorry, apologies, give me 1 minute. I just realized my battery is pretty low and I need to charge it. So just give me a minute. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I am back. So I was saying that this is where we're going to spend a bit of time, because what we're going to do is go to all of this and just like review them a bit. I want you to be interactive in this part. I'll probably be asking questions about, for example, what to search for, just so that you guys have an idea of what each of them is. So the first one I have listed here is Wikimedia Commons. So what is Wikimedia Commons? This is the Wikimedia Commons homepage. It's just a repository of different media files, here, different kinds of medias, from images to videos to audios to, I don't know, different things. So you can search for anything. Does anybody have an example of something they want to search for? We can search for an image, text. Nobody? Okay. Um, okay, so there's some things on the chats. Okay, nothing. Okay, since nobody has, I don't know, since I'll just pick something random to search for. Um, so I'm just going to search for, let's say, a bridge, maybe an image of a bridge, and see what we have. And then again, this me just searching for bridge as an example is what I was talking about not being too broad, because you see now that I search for bridge, I have like different type of bridges, even things that are not necessarily bridges. You can see that this one has like a card bridge because I was not specific. So there are different kinds of bridges. So now what I can do is, for example, I can filter. There's a way to. So you can see here that I can filter for license. I can use I can search for, okay, I want only pictures of bridges that have attribution and same license, some that have attribution, and the ones that have no restrictions. You can search for whatever you want. You could also look for file type. If I'm looking for a GIF, a PNG, or I wanted an SVG image, you can search for image sizes. That's something that is important to you. Community assessments. I think this one just goes over it, and just to make sure that you're getting a good picture, not something that you don't want pictures that are blurry or has not been accessed by anybody. Then you can also sort by relevance or recency. And then another thing I could do is just make my search more. Maybe if I say a walk bridge, I think is that what they're called? I think they're called walk bridges. Aha, for example, you can see that now All the bridge examples I have here are bridges where people can walk over. They're not the ones that cars pass. So this is just an example of using filters to curate your content and make you get content that is more relevant to what you're searching for. So this is Wikimedia Commons. You can also search for other things. This is images. I could search for audio. I'm not really sure. Well, yeah, it's bringing up. I wasn't really sure if there will be any important audios on walking bridges, but I mean, we could also search for videos on bridges so you can see the different examples, and other kinds of media too. So this is a PDF. Yeah, I think these are mostly PDFs. So this is Wikimedia Commons. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm just trying to show you guys example of how you can search for OER and public domain resources using this tool. The next one is PublicDomain.ng, which I believe I have open. Sorry, yes. So PublicDomain.ng has public domain resources, like Nigerian public domain resources, from newspapers to pictures, just different things. And just like the first one, you have like books, so you can check for books in the public domain. You have examples you could check for government publications, you could check for images, newspapers, like old newspapers and all of that. So this is one example. This is a newspaper from 1960. So you see information. So that's also an option. So this you can use public domain to like search for different resources from books to images, just like the other ones. And the next one is OER Africa. I believe this is it. So OER Africa, you can also search. It's you can use it to search for OER resources, just like the name basically says. They also have tutorials on how you can find open content, adapt it, publish, design. They also help you understand OER if that's what you need. And then you can also search for different resources. Um, okay, just going by the examples they have here, you can see they have this farmers agribusiness training course. If you have agriculture students, this is something you could do. Um, okay, so there are a lot of courseware here. Um, Once again, let's see if we can search for something on, let's see, physics. Okay, so I think they don't really have much on physics. That was not the best example. But basically, you can see examples of what they have. You can see they have this an African marriage of OER and AI, three ways artificial intelligence could change how we use OER resources, sharing African knowledge through Pan African research repositories, driving student engagement, just different topics. You can always search and then you could also check out their tutorials, for example. So they have interactive open tutorials, which can also help you. You can search, and they have some languages. So they have English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, which might not be which might not be good for us, but those are examples of what. And this is an OER Africa. So the next one is Google Advanced Search. This one exists, but I feel like not so many people know about it because we're so used to just google.com. So to find Google's Advanced Search, you just need to go to google.com/advanced underscore search. So it gives you this lets you gives you more filters on what to search for. You can search for pages with all these words, exact words or phrases, or just any of these words, or phrase or pages that do include any of this, or numbers. Then for the filters, you can filter by language. So they have a bunch of languages. You can search for anyone you want. You can filter by region. Maybe you want something just from Nigeria or Africa. You can search for something that was updated recently. Like if you want something, maybe you're looking for something about like maybe for example last Buhari died. If you were looking for newspaper articles that were written in that time period that had been updated recently, you wanted to make sure it was not going to bring you results from 2022, you could say, oh, you want something that was last updated in the past 24 hours or in the past week. Then you can also filter by specific sites. If, for example, sometimes when I search for stuff, I like to, I want resources just from Reddit, for example. There sometimes that Reddit is really useful in some things, and I don't want Google to just bring me random results. So you can filter by specifically Reddit.com or Stack Overflow, or just if you wanted to search for OER resources and you wanted to search from Wikimedia Commons, but you don't want to go to Wikimedia Commons. So you could say, oh, I only want resources from commons.wikimedia.org. That's an example. And then you can also say, oh, you want it, maybe when you write the term, you want it to appear just in the title, you want it to appear in the text, you want it in the URL, you want it in the links. And this is really useful if, for example, you remember part of it, but you don't remember part of it. Maybe you're looking for a particular resource. Like I have times where I read books ages ago, maybe I read a book 20 years ago, and then I no longer remember. Okay, 20 years ago. I'm not sure I was reading books 20 years ago. Or maybe I read a book 5, 10 years ago and I no longer remember the title, for example. But I remember a particular dialogue inside the book. So I could say, oh, I want one that appears in the text of the page. Or maybe I visited a particular website. I don't remember the full URL, but I remember part of the URL. So I can put it in and say, oh, okay, I want the term to appear in the URL. It's just like, for example, if we were looking for Wikimedia Commons now, but you couldn't remember what the URL is, but you know that, oh, it must have Wikimedia Commons. So you could say, oh, I want any of these words. I'm sorry, all of these words. Let's use all of these words. So since you know it has both Wikimedia and Commons, you could say, oh, all of these words, and then you could say terms appearing in the URL because you know the URL as that, and to bring you the URL. You could also search for a specific file type if you want PDF, script, GIF, a doc, just different options on what you want. And then this one, which really applies to us in this case, is also you can search by the usage rights. So you can search by, oh, you say you don't want to filter by license, or you want to filter for only resources that are free to use or share, or you want the ones that are free to use, share, I'm afraid to use or share even commercially because you know there are some resources you can use or share, but you can't use commercially because if they are under the CC by SANC, I believe, license, you can't use them commercially. Or you want the one where you can share or modify, which is I remember. Or you want the one where you can use, share, modify, commercially, just different options because you know different resources have different licenses. So depending on what your goal is, if you are not really looking to use it commercially and you don't want to modify, you could just say, oh, free to use or share. But if you wanted to modify, you could look for this. Or if you wanted to use it commercially, you could pick one of these two. Basically, just depending on what you want. So this is Google Advanced Search. It helps you find resources. Okay, we could try looking for something. Let's say I'm looking for a picture of a okay, let's say I'm looking for a picture of a student, mm, a student, let's say maybe an agric student or a student with an agric textbook on culture. Not the best example I know, but we don't really care about the region, the language, the time. We want the term appearing anywhere in the page. And we don't really care about the format, but we want something that is free to use or share. So we search, and just like that, you can see some of these examples. So because I didn't specify whether I wanted an image or a PDF, it's giving me a bunch of examples, which I feel like if we just went to the regular google.com, we probably would not have the same resources. I think that was not the best example, but like this is just to show you. You can say that using just the regular search, we have something completely different. That's just to show the difference between when you use the advanced search and the when you use the advanced search and the another really useful one of this is also you know how this you see how it has this e hide overview here. Sometimes you don't want this AI overview because you want something, um, let's say you want something, sometimes this is not accurate, or sometimes you just don't want this. Maybe you want something that you feel like in the last 2 years, people have not been writing properly. They've been writing more AI generated stuff, and you want to make sure it's not AI generated. You could just go here and say, we don't need this. You could come and say, no, any format. You could say something updated in the past year. Yeah, I think this is what I'm looking for. One second. Oh no, this is not what I was looking for. It just gives you examples of what to look for. For example, if I wanted to just get results from, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say I only wanted examples from results from Internet Archive. If you guys have an example of something you want to search for, so let's say archive.org. I did not spell that right. And you want to search for, let's even say we wanted to search for OER resources generally. So we're just looking for OER, and we wanted results from just archive.org. Interesting. Did I get the site wrong? Strange. I don't know why that didn't work. Let's see. No, no way back. I'm surprised that didn't work. Something must have been wrong with the search. I'm not really sure what happened there. Yeah, so that's strange. I'm not really sure what happened there. So we're just going to leave it. You could also say we wanted specifically from Wikimedia, Reddit. I'm just going to move on now. Okay, so this is another OER resource. TESA, Teacher Education in Sub-Saharan Africa. So this basically, just like it says, is a collaborative network of teachers, teacher educators, and organizations working to achieve quality education for all. So all their resources are OER, and they're provided under the CC by SA, which is share alike, Creative Commons share alike license, which means you can use it anyhow you want. You just have to share it under the same license. So you have different resources you can search for. This is really good for teachers. You can search for, um, and they also have various languages depending on, and even I think I saw Nigeria just now. So you can search for materials, Nigerian materials, contents. So you can see you have life skills, numeracy, literacy, social studies, science, teaching packs. Basically, you have different options. You have some languages. You can search. Sorry, sorry about that. You can search for various options basically. So you can see they have different countries: Western Sahara, Zimbabwe, Zambia. Just depending on what you're looking for, you can come and search your resources. There are also the courses. You could just check the courses depending on what you're looking for. Searching early reading. Sorry, I don't know French, so I'm trying not to read the French ones because I don't really know French. See, this even says it as an African storybook, so you could try out this course if you wanted to teach students. Just various resources. See, so you can, let's just check out the course contents. So, what do you need to know to teach? Early reading, creating a language-rich environment, preparing to teach, methods for teaching, using stories and storybooks, assessing reading to support, and it also gives you an assessment, gives like quizzes, activity examples for you to use. So you could do like timetable, classroom audit, question template, example of an individual reading record. These are just things to guide you if you're a teacher and you want examples of what to use. There are also some additional resources that might be useful to you. So how to translate the story, choosing stories for different purposes, just basically different examples of how to use it. The next one is Internet Archive. I think we've gone over Internet Archive a bit, but we can just go over it again. So this is just it. It has different public domain stuff from text to videos to audio. Just you can search for almost every anything. I think the other day I was searching for Doctor Wu because I was watching them. I've been watching Doctor Wu on um what's it called, Prime Video, but I didn't realize there was like an older version of Doctor Wu. So I came here to search for it and he had it. So I think my network might be a bit slow, which is why it's not loading. So you can see it has some public domain. So you can see all public domain, all Doctor Who titles, intro, 2013 special, just as different resources on. I'm using this as an example because this is something I've searched for recently since nobody's giving me an idea of something they want to search for. So it has different things. See, this is series 10, episode 13. This is a review, so you can just see it has different options. So depending on what you're looking for, for example, if I wanted to filter this now, let's say I wanted to look for something that was published recently, so you can sort by this. You can also filter by creator. Sorry, sort by creator. Just different options of what you want to use. Like for example, I could say, Doctor Who. Oh, see, this is, for example, these are comics. So their comics, their videos, depending on what you need. So this is Internet Archive. And then I think the next one is Project Gutenberg, which is kind of similar to Internet Archive. Should have that open somewhere here. Yeah, so this one basically has just books, but still has a lot of free books you can search for depending on what you need. Once again, you can search by author, title, subject, language, type, popularity. We can do a quick search for, let's see if we have any books on Nigeria. Maybe if we have like something on the history of Nigeria. Okay, you can see, oh, this looks interesting. A Hausa botanical vocabulary, ecom folk stories from southern Nigeria, Nigeria, its people and its problem, the useful trees of northern Nigeria, a resident's wife in Nigeria. So you can see different options. So you can search, I can sort it alphabetically, sort by release date. I can even search specifically by subject. So mission. These are biographies of missionaries that came to Nigeria. This is description and travel books about Nigeria, books about Nigerian folklore in the South, tales, botany, basically just different options. So you can search for a lot of things. I think that's these are most of the examples I have here. So what this basically does is just give you various. This are with by the time you go through all of this, regardless of what you're looking for, you want each there'll be one that applies to what you're looking for specifically. For example, if you're a teacher looking for resources on how to teach a particular topic, you could go to teacher TESA. You could go to teacher education in sub-Saharan Africa, TESA, and search for something. If you're looking for books, you could go to Project Gutenberg. If you're looking for images, or you could go to Wikimedia Commons. If you're looking for newspapers, for example, you could go to PublicDomain.ng. Or if you were looking for images or public domain resources specifically about Nigeria, you could also go to OER Africa if you're specifically looking for OER. And then Google is more like the search engine that helps you. If you're not sure of which of these to go to, you could just use the Google Advanced Search to like filter and decide which one you want to go to. So the next slide, what are the tools you can use for curating and sharing OER? So we have five here. I'll go through some of them. We have Pressbooks. Pressbooks helps you to edit, share learning materials, training curriculums, just different. Decline this. So you can publish. Just you can, if you're trying to self-publish, just whatever you're trying to do. This helps you if you're trying to edit a book and publish a book. You can use Pressbox. It's free, I believe. So you can use it to share, you can use it to collaborate, you can use it to adapt something that's already existing. So they have a lot of open access books. You can search for something there and just adapt it before sharing. So this helps you with that. Then you have Notion and Google Pages. Just this really helps with collaborating and just putting together resources. I think we have a good idea of what those ones are. OER Commons Open Auto. I'm not sure I have that site. Why did I not open that site? Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I thought I should have opened it down, but I guess I mixed that one. So this basically just like I said, it's a tool that helps you create resources, adapt resources, so you can. It helps you build and publish, just like Pressbox, and then yeah, that's just basically it. You can in your free time create review it, so that's very useful for whatever you want to do. The next one is Canva. Canva is, I think, everybody knows Canva. Okay, let me know. Assume everybody knows Canva. Canva is really useful for editing media generally. You want to create slides, you want to create artworks, you want to create graphics, you want to create um, flashcards, you want to create banners, you want to create invitations. Canva is really cool for that, and it has like free versions. It has like a free version, so a lot of free resources which you can use, so you don't need to pay anything. Then there's also Colibri. I believe I have Colibri open somewhere here. Yes. So Colibri is an ecosystem of open digital products and tools centered around an offline first learning platform. So something that would be really useful for you, especially if you're in a place with not very good internet connection. You could use Colibri. I won't go too far into it because we have to like install it to check it out, but you can get the basic idea here. So it's free to use and first so it helps you pretty much. So no questions. Then what are the next steps for you guys to do, which I guess is kind of like an assignment of such. So you need to pick a subject or a topic and curate 2 to 3 resources using some of the tools. So pick a topic that is something that is maybe you're passionate about, or something that seems interesting to you, and use any of the tools I've shared today. I think I'll also share the links to all of those. So use any of them to curate a few resources and then just put them together. So that's the next step for you guys. And I think I'm done. Thank you for coming to talk, and thank you for listening. Even though surprisingly no one had any questions, but yeah, I hope this has been useful to everyone. Okay, I think I should stop sharing my screen now. That place. Um, how do I stop sharing? So I hope this has been useful to everyone. I hope I've been able to share something, even though nobody has any questions. Oh, okay, I can see there's some things in the chat. Oh, okay. Some people are dropping some things in the chat, but sorry, I wasn't reading it. Can I please help with the last slide? What slide are you referring to, Khadija? I'm just seeing some of the questions in
Good
the
evening, ma'am.
chat.
Yes, the
Yeah, what
materials we
slide?
can, the, hello, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, thank you so much for this training. It's been insightful, and I think I've learned a lot. But I was not able to write
Oh, thank
the sites we can get, the
Side.
tools,
Okay,
sorry, we
I
can
think
use. So I only wrote Colibri.
um
I couldn't write the others.
Colibri. I think after class they will share the slides and also the links to each of those resources to you
Okay.
so that you can just have everything at the go. Yes. So thank you. So that's basically it. If anybody has any other questions or anything they want to ask, we can do that right now before we round up.
So sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
Another
Yes, yes,
question
go
is:
ahead.
Is there a time frame for this assignment?
I think you have at least until the next session. You
Okay.
have before the next session to work on it. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I hope I've been able to share at least some information with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed my talk and it wasn't too boring. Yeah, Isaac, I'm going to hand over now. Um,
Thank you, PJ. Thank you, everyone, attending today's session. And I must say, I really learned a lot, particularly with the Google Advanced Search. I never really knew it could do that much. So it's also something I'm taking away from myself. So if there are no questions from anyone, we can just wrap it up for today. And would share all the slides as we always do by Monday morning, and other instructional materials you can read, and then the quiz as well. So please also try to respond to your quiz because it's important for our assessment for this program. And we'll also be sharing more details for people that indicated interest in the capstone project and the funding. So we'll send an email separately to everyone that indicated interest so that we can also start the processing of that as well. So that by the time we're wrapping up, we'd have some projects that are almost ready or that are ready to be shared with the world. So thank you all for joining us today, and do have a great rest of the weekend, and see you next week.